Good evening. My name is Anthony Bell, and I'm going to make an attempt to give an analysis on the personality profile of Bishop T.D. Jakes. Um, I'm going to do my best here to get through it, and I'll give you the theories that we'll be approaching this analysis with. We'll be applying the personality theories of Carl Jung and Carl Rogers. I found these theories to be most relative to Bishop T.D. Jakes, as well as they were easier for me to understand uh, as compared to some of the other theories that I could have used. But I decided to go along with Carl Jung and Carl Rogers. The purpose of this analysis, of course, is we want to analyze a real person, that person being Bishop T.D. Jakes. Hopefully, we have a more cursory understanding on his personality type by the end of this analysis. And I want you all to have a better understanding of how personality is developed through different experiences, tribulation, loss. Uh, it's quite an evolutionary process. So we're going to try to make some sense of this in this analysis. A little bit about the background of Bishop T.D. Jakes. A little bit about the background of Bishop T.D. Jakes. Most people know him as an inspirational speaker, the founder of the Potter's House Ministry. Uh, he started the Women Thou Art Loose movement, which was a series that ended up being a book series in this world national movement dedicated to the empowerment of women and standing up for themselves and speaking out against their abuse, which was a big part of how he got started, being a renowned figure. He's been an author. He's put out several books, motivational speaker, speaking all over the world. And like I said, founding the Potter's House, I believe somewhere in 1996. And he's been in ministry up and downs. There's been trials and tribulations. He has struggles. He's experienced loss. I'll talk about that later on in the slide. But it's been an evolution of personality. Some of the things that he's gone through has shaped who he is as a person. And we'll get into that more as the slide goes on. Again, I chose to use the theories of Carl Jung, um, the analytical theory. And I liked it, this theory, again, because it was very easy, not very easy, but more easy for me to understand as I applied it to the personality development of Bishop Jakes. As you can see, the analytical theory, the objective is aimed at understanding a total person. When we talk about the mind of a person, their cognitive dispositions, body, how they respond to life, how they react to life, and their behavior throughout the different stages of their life, and their soul, their center of emotion, and the depths of how those things work and all come together to develop a person's personality. Carl Rogers, the humanistic theory, was also one that I felt was relative to Bishop Jakes in this analysis. Um, when we talk about being growth centered, the framework of this analysis is just that. when we focusing on what it takes for a person to get to self-actualizing, when you reach that ultimate fulfillment in life. And we want to credit Abraham Maslow for the hierarchy of needs that helps us to understand that better. There's different things that have to occur in our natural needs in order for us to get to that pinnacle in life of self-actualization. Bishop T.D. Jakes suffered some significant life events. Um, there was loss. Coming up, his father suffered an illness, a heart attack, and it put his father down for a while. And during this time, Bishop Jakes was his support for his father in ministry. You know, as a young man, supporting his father in ministry, traveling throughout West Virginia um, to support different ministries and grow them. And his father ultimately would die. He succumbed to his challenges with his heart, and he died. And Bishop Jakes will find himself in a position where he have to make the decision: will I continue on in ministry, or will I, uh, you know, stay still and succumb to the loss of my father's illness? So I imagine at this point in Bishop T.D. Jakes' life, he's wrestling with making a decision because he's looked up to his father, who was the head, who was the leader, who set structure and gave him a foundation to continue to build on the ministry. And imagine having to suffer that loss and have to question yourself as rather not you should move on. Should I continue building? So there's plenty of doubts that he had to wrestle with. And I believe he went on to go through ministry, and he struggled because there was financial struggles in ministry. He didn't always have the numbers um, to support the growth of the ministry, but yet and still had to decide to continue on. And he would overcome those struggles, and it took a while for him. And ultimately to establish the Potter's House, which is we know as his mega ministry, that he grew to some 30,000 people. Bishop Jakes had humble beginnings. He didn't come from a whole lot. From South Charleston, West Virginia, so there wasn't a whole lot um, going on there. So In this slide, we want to identify some of the key elements of Carl Jung and Carl Rogers' theory and some of the insights. When we talk about Carl Jung, part of the analytical theory is individuation. All right, and this is when we talk about growth and identity through struggle, in which we see that with Bishop Jakes, his decision to continue to overcome, regardless of his father's loss and illness, and his father being the bedrock to everything that was being built and him being the support. Where he could have made a decision to not continue, to kind of give up and let it go, but that's not what he did. And that's what kind of what individuation describes. The archetypical identity that highlights the spiritual leader aspect of who Bishop Jakes is. He became, ultimately became a leader, became that person that kind of what his father was, and he had an example of what to identify with when it came to spiritual leading and the strength that comes with that. Rogers, his humanistic theory, I really I really like the element of self-actualization when we talk about the humanistic theory. Um, One thing I do believe is that it's something many of us will not actually reach, because self-actualization is the kind of like the completion of the whole person. When you reach a state of completion and self-acceptance, and you own all of you. That's what self-actualization is, and that's not an easy thing to accomplish. I think very few people will actually reach that state, but it's growth at its fullest potential is the best way that I can describe self-actualization. The second element that's important for Rogers' theory is the real versus ideal self. Um, the real versus the ideal self. This was not an easy thing for me to understand, and I think because I was so stuck on the self actualization aspect of it, this is the part that kind of I'm still confused about. But I know it talks about the alignment through uh, uh, being authentic. Being authentic. Now, as this applies to Bishop T.D. Jakes, at some point I believe that there's a battle with identity and compromising. Who who am I versus who I should be? That can be a tough thing, especially when you're someone in ministry and you're growing. Now, though I love these theories and they help me to understand who Bishop Jakes is, as far as his personality, there are also some limitation. And as much as I like Carl Jung's analytical theory as it relates to Bishop Jakes, um, and what it accomplishes as far as understanding the total person, mind, body, and soul. But the fact of the matter is, and if I could use this term, I think the limitation in Carl Jung's theory and it not it's hard to be scientifically measurable is because it's very existential in nature. If I could use that term, and I'm hoping I'm using it correctly, but it's very difficult to measure scientifically. So that's one of the biggest limitations to the analytical approach to personality. Um, when it comes to Carl Rogers, uh, yes, the strength of of the growth and self-actualization, it's it's encouraging and it's optimistic, but I think that's its limitation. It can be too optimistic. It doesn't. Again, it's kind of like the Carl Jung theory. It's hard to measure scientifically. Um, it's like it's missing. It's missing something that that you can't quite put. There's a missing element to it. It's too. It's not definitive enough, and I guess it can't be because it lacks that structure. Um, that makes these two theories hard to measure scientifically. So those would be some strengths and limitations. In conclusion, personality is not fixed. It's not some permanent uh, one size fit all type of thing. Personality can evolve through experiences, through circumstances, through conditioning. Personality should be a continuous growth. Uh, there should always be a growing process related to personality, again, because it's not fixed. It should be ever evolving. And when we consider life experiences and things that we overcome, our obstacles, our adversity, any type of opposition that we face, all these things, especially over duration of time, can shape who we are as far as our personality. Which leads me to believe that personality, it can be altered, it can evolve, it should always be ever evolving. And I also think that even though I lean on the Carl Rogers theory and the Carl Jung theory, analytical and humanistic, I do believe that there are other personality theories that are applicable to Bishop T.D. Jakes and can actually help you understand it better. Uh, the Sigmund Freuds of the world, the Abraham Maslow's, the Eric Ericksons of the world. But I believe they have theories that also can contribute to understanding Bishop T.D. Jakes' personality. But I lean on Carl Jung and Carl Rogers because theirs were more comprehensive to me, easier for me to apply. And with that said, uh, I hope we gotten at least a few things out of the way, and you have a little bit better understanding of what personality is, how it can evolve, and different dynamics that come along with it. Uh, have a good day.